companies doing great things differently, but the same. I'm Ronn Englehart. I'm the Digital Continuous Improvement Program Manager for Intertape Polymer Group. So who is Intertape Polymer Group? So we are a world leader in protective packaging solutions. Our tapes range from industrial, commodity, and specialty grade tapes. We also do stretch and shrink films. We have a whole protective packaging line, bubble mailer, bubble wrap. And then we actually have a woven division, so structured fabrics, geomembranes. It's interesting because we have products that have been to space. We've had products that have been in the bottom of the ocean, and I don't mean post-consumer waste. We actually support the gas industry. And how many people use e-commerce? You've probably all touched our products. So our tape actually seals for the major e-commerce company, which I can't name. So we have 31 locations across North America, Europe, and Asia. 25 are manufacturing sites. And over the past 5 years, we've acquired 3 sites. We've done 3 greenfield builds and 2 brownfield expansions. Again, so we're dealing with disparate systems. A lot of the challenges that I heard spoken to over the past couple of days. So when we talk about Industry 4.0, we look at, if you do a Google search, just out of curiosity, I looked at lean manufacturing, and you get about 116 million results. When you look at Industry 4.0, you get 637 million results pop up. And why is that? And this is really something that only started being talked about in 2011. And it's the holy grail that everybody's looking for, right? So what's the playbook? How do I go ahead and incorporate digital within my facility? And the problem is we're all different. And the playbook is not the same. We've got lean tools. Those all have existed for a century now. One thing is less than 30% of companies who attempt to scale actually deliver the expected ROI. And AR is a difficult sell for many people, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So the one thing is, are you actually ready? So if your CEO goes out and says, Industry 4.0 sounds interesting, go make it happen, you're probably going to be in that 70% that fail, right? You really need to have some of these key enablers in place. You need to have a learning environment. You need to have growth mindset. And I appreciate everybody talked about embrace failure. You have to be willing to embrace failure. There are all kinds of black box solutions, solution providers that exist in the industry that promise everything and deliver nothing, right? So be willing to embrace failure. Do it quickly, do it cheaply. And you have to be willing to take risk. So this is what IPG is looking at. I just wanted to show that we're not a one-trick pony. We're looking at 7 different aspects in the digital realm, including advanced analytics. But what I want to talk to you today is more about our augmented reality journey. Again, Industry 4.0 isn't the shiny object in the room. Really, you should be bringing technology to your plant that is specifically to address a problem. So I said it was a hard sell. We're a small company. We're 1.4 billion, not $400 billion company. So our key executives, we know each other. I had a hard sell with AR. They knew I was a musclehead, right? So I brought this. This was the epiphany for me. Generation X, that's me, working with my dad in the garage, trying to figure out how to tune a Holley 4-barrel carb, right? I can pull out those manuals, the dusty manuals off the shelf, the same thing you have in your plants today. Or Generation Y and Generation Z, I can go to YouTube and show the same thing in 7 minutes and 37 seconds. right? That's the problem that we're facing today, right? That next generation coming in doesn't assimilate to those work instructions. And we've got to change what we do in order to make that happen. So what were the pain points for IPG? Specifically what we were facing is safety is number one for us. We have life critical safety, whether it's lockout, tagout, confined space. We are a very good company to work for. So we have exiting knowledge of a senior workforce. Some of them in critical, all of them in critical operations. Leaving at one time, 3 to 5 years from now. We were actually introducing some new technologies that I didn't even have a subject matter expert for, so I had to capture that knowledge from the builders. How many people are struggling to get skilled labor today? Right? So now I've got to be able to upskill people from the floor into my skilled labor. So another subset of training that I need to address. And I want to make sure that I can promote Industry 4.0 technologies, one of which is AR, to people coming into our facility. So we separated into primary use cases: lockout, tagout, onboarding and recruiting, QC inspection, and then the last two are really around that skilled labor. So equipment process care and maintenance rounds and preventative maintenance. All right. Few things to learn from our company. I've heard a lot of the other speakers talk about some of these. Considerations prior to an implementation of AR. One is making sure you have alignment of the key stakeholders, making sure you have resource allocation, and what are the expectations of reporting value. The next is a technology implementation plan. So very simply, we talked about Wi-Fi. I had the added benefit of, we use Wi-Fi a lot in the plant, so I had that in place prior to implementation, so I was a step ahead. Have a deployment strategy. So again, a lot of us here are either starting an AR journey, some of us are farther along, but you start with point A, you know it's a need, and point B, you know what the future looks like, but you need to have a deployment strategy that gets you there. And then make sure you're aligned on the value generation metrics. How much pain is it causing? How much risk is it to your organization? And what's that return? I'm not going to go through this, but I just wanted to show you that we take all of our key digital strategies and we do this same thing. We put a digital transformation alignment where we have senior level executives as sponsors. We have enterprise project champions, which I lead several of those groups. We have plant project leads. The part I don't want you to forget is your IT and finance, right? IT there is there to validate security of what you put in place, and finance is there to validate the value that you return. Then we looked at implementation phases, technology readiness. So what was the technology we were going to use at our site? And we elected to go with HoloLens 2 from Microsoft, and that was more for capturing content. But when we consume content, we also look at tablets, we look at phones. We do consume some of the content within the HoloLens platform. The next one was IT readiness. So what's our Wi-Fi connectivity? Am I going to be able to use this in all applications at all points in the manufacturing process? Then you actually have to go through a training phase, piloting phase, scaling phase, and deployment. So what was important to us is value creation happens when opportunity meets execution. So we actually took the time, and the way I did it, and it's something potentially you can use at your site, is identify those pain points. And I treated this almost like you would an FMEA, in which down the left side was my operations, so my job opportunities, right? And then I scored each of the pain points and criticality against that job model. When I did that, I came up with an RPN number. And that RPN number is then what I use to generate my deployment strategy for my teams, right? It gave them very clear direction. They knew what the execution strategy was, and it made it very simple and easy to understand as they deployed within the site. Again, we can talk offline if you want to have more ideas on how we generated that deployment strategy. We looked at key metrics in two different ways. Our quantitative assessment, so our life-critical tasks captured and validated, our time to proficiency, cost of training reduction, our time to onboard, our job turnover rate, waste reduction, which is huge for us. So I don't know how many of the other businesses are, but 70% of the cost of our manufacturing is in material. Changeover time reduction and downtime reduction. And this was our ability to communicate with sites overseas. So we use Chalk to communicate overseas. It's important for me to mention, now that I mentioned Chalk, we partnered with PTC. PTC is our software provider. And on the hardware side, we partnered with using the HoloLens, and we use tablets. We've gained a great partnership in PTC. It's been a good environment for us. So I wanted to make sure we mentioned that. On the qualitative assessment side, compliance with ISO training, our talent acquisition, our adoption rate, and customer experience. So I wanted to talk about, we actually piloted in 3 sites. We are now scaling to 9 sites. But I wanted to give you just some idea of what our initial state was and what our target state was. So believe it or not, in lockout tagout compliance, we were performing over 5,000 lockout tagout procedures over the course of a year. I was astounded when I learned that we were doing that level of detail within the site, which is good. It means we're doing our lockout tagout. Problem is, only about 43% of the procedures were actually being audited for compliance. With our system, we are able to put checks and balances in place and do 100% validation through the technology itself. Yield improvement. We were able to improve from 91.9% yield to 93% yield. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but we're talking about almost $1 million at one location. So, labor efficiency, we targeted a 10% improvement in labor efficiency, and within the first site, our beta site that we first started with, we had 12% improvement in our labor efficiency and 5.7% at the second location. In training time, so I mentioned we introduced a new technology. So this was a good litmus test for a beta program. So typically, our general proficiency was around that 60-day mark, and standalone proficiency was around 90 days. And with that new technology, we were shooting for 30 days and 60 days. Now, we're still in beta phase with that new technology, so we're still working through that sequence. But what I will say is we introduced over 40 procedures into that program. We generated new content. Each procedure we were able to generate in 8.3 hours over our typical 8-hour, 16-hour procedures. And currently tracking our production rates and yields to assess our time to proficiency, but I'll tell you the data looks really good right now. Again, publication time, we were publishing 210 new procedures annually and validating and updating over 600. And we were able to reduce those times nearly 30 to 50%. So I did want to go through.
In this demonstration, we have a team member showcasing the abilities of PTC's Vuforia Vantage application. The procedure is a lockout-tagout demonstration in our converting area of the previously shown Blythewood, South Carolina manufacturing plant. The procedure was created and documented using Vuforia Capture. By placing locations, we can pinpoint where the step will be taking place. As you get closer, you will notice that the marker goes away, and a larger outlined circle will appear indicating that you are at the correct spot. This will eliminate any guesswork of am I at the right location or I hope this is same as the information listed. With this feature, your team members will have no doubts of performing tasks correctly.
So in this scenario, we're using the HoloLens 2. So for our lockout tagout procedures, often we need hands-free. So we're doing information, we're locking out equipment, we're validating, we're using capacitance checks. So we opted for the HoloLens 2 for our lockout tagout. Also, we're navigating large spaces, right? So a lockout tagout of some of our equipment may take you hundreds and hundreds of feet. So this was the best option for our lockout tagout. All right, this is one thing people don't consider. AR is a recruitment tool, right? So this is a job fair. And one thing people may not realize is there's nothing worse than going to a job fair, getting 30 people that don't know anything about your business. You spend 2 weeks onboarding them, and once they hit the production floor, they're out the door, right? So we actually use this as a recruitment tool. We were able to give people an experience of what the manufacturing facility is like. Think of when COVID hit, you had a lot of people leaving service industries, may have been in service industries for 15 to 20 years and had no experience in manufacturing. And what we found is often those service people didn't want to be in manufacturing. They wanted to be back in service. So we were able to use this as a recruitment tool. We were able to walk through procedures with people, introduce them to the site so they knew prior to ever accepting a position with our facility. So where's our future headed? We actually have generated a digital academy of excellence, and we call it our Intertape Performance System 2.0. We're going to continue to upskill from the floor into our skilled labor workforce. That's always going to be a direction for us. We are going to continue to invest a lot of money into IoT, sensors, predictive maintenance, analytics. And we're in the process of using advanced analytics and developing our AI strategy. But again, it's all about empowering employees with technology. So I wanted to make it really simple. We're doing a lot of good work to get data out of our systems and disparate systems. But until you can contextualize and visualize that data, it's not going to help the employee on the floor. So our next step is making sure we're taking that digital content and bringing it into the virtual world. So just some key takeaways. Make sure you identify your pain points. Make sure you take some time and plan your execution strategy. Make sure you're resourcing AR correctly. Measure and validate your success. Make sure you're celebrating the wins and learning from the losses. For us, we're just getting started.